Hi, Dan. Hi, Bob. Hopefully you're doing well, guys. Hi, listeners.
Everything is fine, Nasser. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Still doing very well here in sunny, beautiful San Diego.
Well, Nasser, I got to tell you, you came up, we got a long list of questions, and when we announced, and I say this to most guests, but this is exceptional, when we announced your appearance on the show, you couldn't fathom the feedback we've gotten. There are a whole laundry list of topics that our listeners want to hear from you. We're going to start out from the beginning. You came up as a pro in 1990. It took you a few years, though, to get some attention. In fact, you competed in the 91 and the 92 Night of Champions, and you didn't even place in the top 15 in those events. But in 1993, your career, it took a quantum leap. Nasser, talk about those first couple of years as a pro.
Thank you, guys, that so many are listening. But to come back to the question, for sure I turned 1990 pro after I won a couple of times the Mr. Yugoslavia contest, and up to date, I and this other guy, Pavel Jablonitsky from Slovak Republic, we've been now for 16 years in a row competing in the pro ranks. So I didn't compete last year, but this is definitely a personal record and also a world record. At the same time, being as long pro as I am now with Pavel. And to come back to the question, yes, the first couple of years was pretty difficult as a pro, so I didn't place really good. And I thought 93, after being for 4 years in the pro ranks, if I won't qualify for the Olympia, I definitely will quit bodybuilding. But it worked finally out. I qualified 93, but didn't do the Olympia. And because I wanted still to wait how my physique is improving. And then the following year in 94, I qualified in Europe twice, in 2 shows in Germany and in France. And then finally, I did my first Olympia appearance in 94. But honestly, it was pretty back, actually, pretty difficult. And I'm looking back to reach that level which I had finally in 94.
Nasser, what changes did you have to make? It took you 5 years, actually, and of competitions, like Dan said, a couple of no places at the NOC, which you would take an impressive second place in 94. But what changes did you have to make to get yourself up into that top 3?
Rob, that's a good question. But honestly, to tell you the truth, it was just training maturity, training over more and more years, and learning finally to diet correctly, because I was off-season pretty big, but I never got it really down to be really crisp, hard, and sliced for one of the shows. And finally I got it together, but it takes you years to figure out how your body is responding to diet, and you have constantly to work out. So the other factor would be definitely muscle maturity.
Nasser, you explained in the past, though, that it's much easier for an athlete who comes up through the NPC. You, of course, came out of Germany. Do you feel that the American NPC bodybuilder enjoys an advantage on the pro level over those who come up through other organizations?
Yeah, sure, guys. It's not that I'm trying to make any kind of excuses for not winning shows or for losing shows, but definitely when you are an NPC champion, you as an NPC champion, you definitely have an advantage, because you grow up basically in that kind of situation, knowing the judges, knowing the promoters, knowing people in the top of the NPC, and we were coming from outside, for example, like me from Europe, also before Andreas Winter, also to mention people like Milos, also Gunther Schlickamp, also Markus Ruhl. It makes it way more difficult. And because if you are winning, then you have really to be actually better than an NPC champion to actually deserve the title or the placement you are getting. So it's definitely more difficult. And I would also say, to come back to Pavel Jablonitsky, I think if this guy would have lived in the United States, he would have played better. So I decided, basically after I got the contract from Joe Weider in 94, to move over. And I'm pretty sure and convinced if I would have never come over, I would have never achieved all these placements. But again, if you're living here or not as a non-NPC athlete, it's definitely more difficult, definitely.
Well, Nasser, apparently you did something right, because 1995 was truly a breakout year with your first 2 pro victories, one at the NOC, one at the Houston Pro, and then the top 3 finish at the Olympia. A great year for you, and I don't want to gloss over that, but just when you're rolling, 1996 comes and you win 3 more shows, 3 more Grand Prix shows. So you have 5 wins in 6 shows. You get to the Olympia, you end up disqualified. Tell me about it.
Yes, there's a lot of talk about this show 96, where I was admitting that I was taking diuretics. And the funny thing with that is I have to mention at the same time, also right now rating Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler, congratulations, by the way, to him that he won the Olympia. But Jay Cutler, 4 or 5 years later, after I was basically so-called caught in the diuretic test, he was also caught in the diuretic test, and it makes me wonder 4 or 5 years later that he still was using diuretics and got caught. But the biggest difference between me and him was that he tried basically to threaten, and he actually threatened the NPC, and who else was part of that, if he gets disqualified. So nobody finally disqualified him. He kept his placement, and he kept his money. So I was basically honest, got disqualified, he was dishonest, got deserved, and this opened him the way basically to proceed further in the rankings. And I'm definitely also convinced if I would have had a different name, a different background, and wouldn't have been NPC from beginning on, and wouldn't have been as outspoken as I sometimes am, that it would never happen in that way that I got punished like Jay Cutler never got punished.
Nasser, did you ever, after the Jay Cutler incident where, actually you mean IFBB, not NPC, but after the Jay Cutler incident, and he did threaten to sue the IFBB because the testing allegedly was not up to spec, it was not IOC testing like it was alleged to be, and they backed down. Did you ever consider at that point bringing up your case for that money that was obviously taken out of your hands?
No, actually not, because I didn't want to fall back in any kind of childish arguments. So I definitely didn't do it and didn't want to start or proceed with any kind of threat. So I let it go how it is. But again, it's amazing that he could keep his second place, and that my placement was taken off, and not to be talking now about the money. But again, sometimes obviously it works more out if you are louder, and sometimes obviously it didn't work out, like in my case.
Well, Nasser, one of the reasons we do this show is so that our guests have the chance to speak publicly and respond to the various issues, rumors, and so forth. So I'm going to cut right to it. Over the years, many of your critics have accused you of using synthol. So once and for all, how do you respond to all that, Nasser?
Good question again, Dan and Bob. I would like first to say the person who brought this up was, I would actually title him as a perpetrator. This was Art Bedway. I wouldn't only title him as a perpetrator, I would also title him as a drunk who should actually never continue judging. He brought it up in 2001 after the Olympia, the banquet. He said I had something stuck in my shoulders, and this would be an artificial substance, which actually was never ever the case, because my shoulders are one of the best in the sport with Marcus Rule, I would say. But again, it was Art Bedway who brought this rumor up, and he doesn't know too much about the sport, and especially not about any kind of things which are a lot of athletes doing or not. He was just assuming it, and he created this avalanche of accusations. So with him started the problem. That's the reason why I'm actually mentioning him. But when we talk about the use of synthol, guys, I can only tell you out of personal experience, I know a lot of people who are even doing the so-called Mr. San Diego contest, which is a little contest compared to any kind of national NPC show or any kind of pro shows. I would say 95% of all athletes in the amateur and pro ranks are using synthol nowadays. There are even people in the judging panel, judges who are using synthol, and even judges who have silicone caps sitting in the judging panel, and they're accusing other athletes of doing this or that. And this is a terrible thing from my point of view.
Well, Nasser, I may have missed it in that response, but are you saying you have experienced and used synthol, or you have not?
Bob, I would like to give you a general answer. Let's put it this way. I don't know anybody who is in the sport involved who is more or less successful, even if it's, again, on a Mr. San Diego level or Mr. West Palm Beach level, who did not experience synthol. So I would say synthol use is as common as using a toothpaste for most people in this world.
Nasser, what are your personal thoughts on the use of synthol? Is it something that is part of the game now that the bar has been raised so high? If we take your percentage for gospel at 95%, then we'll assume that everybody's doing it. Does that not make the playing field level? And is this just another extension of a tool to be used for bodybuilding? The thing is, guys, it's like any other substance bodybuilders are trying to use whatever it can help you possibly. If you didn't use it, so you sooner or later try to use it just to see how it works. And I, in general, would say when people have already developed muscles, the use of synthol can help you maybe 1 or 2%, but on the other side, it doesn't create any kind of miracle. If you're not really training hard, if you don't have your dedication, if you don't have the attitude to go through many, many years of workouts, and if you don't diet correctly, synthol won't actually help you at the end. So I think it's overrated, but it's still at the same time used and definitely tried for almost everybody.
Nasser, let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about your physique for a moment. A few years ago, you did an interview with Flex Magazine, and you said in that interview, and I quote, "Why is my back the only weak body part that is constantly being discussed?" You then go on to say, and I quote, "Because of my honesty, I have been the target of criticism, and much of it is exaggerated." Nasser, do you feel that your back was overly criticized?
Yes, I personally would say so. I heard for so many years my back is not good enough and so on. But honestly, guys, as you said before, I wouldn't have placed so high if I would have had such a bad back. I said once in an interview that my back would need some improvement, and because I thought it had to get harder at that time. And so everybody jumped on that issue that Nasser was even saying by himself that his back is not good enough. And then I heard all this BS. For example, at the Olympia 97, yes, Nasser looked good, but Dorian beat him from the back. So the thing is, the answer is, didn't I beat him from the front and from the side and from the other side? Besides that, from the back you see also the shoulders and the legs. So I think this is BS that so many people said, if Nasser would have had bigger or better or more crisp back, he would have won. It was one of the most political decisions in pro bodybuilding that I didn't want the Olympia 97. It had barely to do with my back development. I didn't show up like Dorian with almost 8 torn muscles, with quad tears, 6 quad tears, with a hip tear, with biceps and a tricep tear, and then he still won with a perfect score. To me, today, this was just a made-up story to put me in second and to make me shut up. But again, I feel robbed in 97, and it didn't have anything to do with my back, not whatsoever.
Yeah, so that win would have made you the 10th winner of the Mr. Olympia. How difficult was that defeat for you to swallow?
It was actually pretty difficult, and when I went back to the hotel room, actually, guys, again, to tell you the truth, I was actually crying because on stage I didn't want to cry because I felt completely robbed, but then I thought maybe I will win next year, but next year I didn't win either. I think also one of the other reasons was, again, that I wasn't an NPC athlete. Dorian wasn't either, but at least he had a good connection to a lot of NPC people, and which are also major people in the IFBB. So it works always good out if you know people and you talk to people and you invite people to your house and make your phone calls. And I was never one of these guys who did that, and I didn't do it today. I don't have a problem to call anybody up of these people in the hierarchy, but I'm not calling them intentionally up to place higher or to play games. So I think in bodybuilding such kind of actions are pretty frequent. And then on the other side, I thought also by having Dorian as basically a guy from England, having him winning 6 Olympiads, I didn't want to have necessarily another guy winning from Europe, another 5 or 6 maybe upcoming Olympiads, which would basically underline the inferiority of the American athletes. And at that time I was also pretty freaky compared to the other guys. A lot of smaller people would have thought they won't have a chance to come up in the higher hierarchy of pro placements. So I think my physique was somehow at the wrong time, at the wrong place. But then when Dorian basically stepped out, they started throwing me more and more down as well. Because I didn't win against him, but at the same time, when his time was over, it looked almost like my time would be soon over, and at the end it was like that.
Well, Nasser, it's funny you should mention that. In 1997, for my money, you win the Mr. Olympia based on all the criteria you've already mentioned.
Thank you very much, Bob. I really appreciate that.
Well, we try to call it the way we see it, and I think there's a whole bunch of decisions that could have gone the other way throughout bodybuilding history. My question to you is this, though. 1997 comes, you take second place, you're still second best in the world. Dorian decides to hang him up. 1998
it was definitely time for him, when you have obviously such a damaged body, and you're still winning for perfect score with messed up and torn muscles. This is very questionable, how the sport can continue existing with such kind of strange decisions. And I think he was more or less forced by specific people to retreat, and luckily he retreated.
Well, let me move on, though. But 1998 comes, and you have to feel like you are the favorite going in. Dorian is now retired. Everybody else you've pretty much beaten to that point. Which hurt more, actually, losing 97 to Dorian or losing 98 when Ronnie Coleman comes out of no place, a guy you've beaten a dozen times up to that point, and relegates you to third place?
Again, guys, when I went into the 98 Olympia, I wanted for sure to win the Olympia, but I really didn't have the belief they would give it to me, regardless how I would be looking. I had somehow a bad feeling, and again, I think it was a political decision that they never created the protest for me, that I could win the Olympia. For sure, it was bad 97 and 98 too, but on the other side, you have to digest, victory and also defeat. And again, I didn't have the feeling at that time, 98, that it would let me win the Olympia, regardless I would be looking.
Nasser, before we wrap it up, we got a couple questions more on the lighter side to throw at you. The first one is actually our GetBig.com question of the week, provided to us by the Get Big moderator, Ron Avedon. Apparently, some of the members over at GetBig.com, they want to know, and I'm actually a little curious about this myself, Nasser, are people actually purchasing those used gym clothes that you're selling on your website?
Yes, it's not only a joke. People are really using... using the internet to order stuff from me. They don't only order used clothes, they also order used underwear, which is for sure strange, but people have different tastes. There are a lot of different people on this planet.
Yeah, hey, thanks for that fruit of the loom, Nasser. I really appreciated that.
If they like to have used underwear or used gloves or used shoes or whatever they need, then I have it here, in access in my storage, so why not? But, when they start actually writing back and forth, how the trunks look and how many times I use them. I use my trunks once and I throw them away. So some people like that I sweat my posing trunks up, use them for the gym and send them out, So if it comes too much in a kind of a sexual way, I'm not actually corresponding with these people back and forth. But if they just order some stuff and they are basically regular about it and treat it as a regular item, I have no problem to send the stuff out.
So, Nasser, your basic premise is that if they're willing to pay for it, you're willing to send it out.
Yes, absolutely. I don't have a problem with that. As I said, guys, people have different tastes, and you can't judge somebody for his taste, because every one of us has a different priority.
Nasser, you were someone who finished near the top of every show you entered, but once the calendar turned to 2002, all of that seemed to change. Now, in your most recent 4 events, you finished no higher than 14th. Many of us are asking, why is the great Nasser El Sonbaty still competing?
That's a good question again, guys. After not winning the Olympia and then finally winning the Arnold Classic in 99, and also realizing that I will never win the Olympia regardless how I would be looking, even if I would have improved 10 or 20%, my motivation from 2002 went down. In 2003, I had basically injury. I had to go to hospital because I had a staph infection. And then my personal goal at that time was not anymore winning the Olympia. It was just getting back into shape and proving to myself that I still can look good. But again, my that motivation proceeded more and more, nevertheless, that I started getting ready for the shows. And finally, those 4 results came out in which I really didn't look that good. I saw the pictures also afterwards many times, and I have really to say I didn't look as good compared to all these other years. But again, how many years should you run against the wall? and how much more chicken breast should you eat. If you count all my diets together, I've been more than 15 years on diets, if you count all my dieting together. And sometimes sooner or later, your motivation or your devotion is somehow turning an obsession. I don't like to be an obsessed bodybuilder who competes 20 plus more years, and I competed so far 21 years. So I think sometimes sooner or later it should be an end.
Nasser, I've got a two-part question. The first part is, I've had a long-standing belief that when you were in the mix with Dorian and Fuchs and some of the big boys that were up there, you matched up very well, especially to Dorian. When Dorian retired, though, and Fuchs was out of the mix, you were kind of like the last man standing, and all of a sudden the next crop that came up, Flex, Cormier, Sean Ray, Lavroni, and et cetera, all had a strikingly different-looking physique than yours. Were you just purely a victim of the times changing in bodybuilding?
Yes, I would say partially also, definitely, Bob, because I had this power physique and was actually bigger than most of the other guys, but I wouldn't say only that I was bigger than anybody else I had, and still have genetically very good symmetry and very good proportion. But still, when Dorian went out of the game, as we speak, my time seemed to be also over, because it's definitely a different physique which Sean Ray or Cormier, or also Kevin Lavroni or Flex Wheeler brought on the table compared to mine. Just different bodies. And so I think the time of the huge bodybuilders is more or less over. That's what I personally think. Regardless, if you mentioned guys before, the guy Freeman or any other kind of freaky huge people, but I think it's more or less over. And people like to see bodybuilding more mainstream, but I personally think if you have small athletes on stage or bigger athletes on stage, it won't actually make bodybuilding more popular, where we can go now to the next issue. I don't think it has to do with the physiques, it has to do with the money which should be more invested into bodybuilding. And next week, guys, when you see Arnold coming there, you can tell him definitely two things. I like to say this right now. He made somewhere the statement that I was an endomesomorph. You can tell him, guys, that I am purely mesomorph. And the second thing is, it's nice and great that he has 4 careers and that he's the governor of California, but he should promote bodybuilding way more, and he should use his influence in the time in which he is right now in. So again, this was just something to add up to the question you had to me.
Nasser, we will certainly pass it along to the governor. Nasser,
yes.
Final question. Is Nasser El Sonbaty retired from competitive bodybuilding?
Guys, on one side, yes, on one side, not. I have still to make my mind up. I'm still working out, pretty frequently. The last 3 months I didn't work out. Started training again about 2 weeks ago because of a couple of surgeries. I had a couple of lipomas taken out under my armpit, left and right. And I had also my belly button fixed, so I'm ready to go. But I wouldn't actually like to say right now that I'm done or not done. I still leave it open, but for sure, the train for being Mr. Olympia is since many, many years over. But we'll see what's happening in the future.
Yeah, sir, a few seconds ago you mentioned the name Sean Ray. Well, in that Flex Magazine article I brought up a few minutes ago, you said, and I quote, Sean Ray should apply for a job at FedEx because he tells everyone that he has a perfect package, but he is short, his calves are high, his shoulders are narrow, and his back lacks width. He calls bodybuilders like me mass monsters, so I feel able to call him a mini monster. It is my fault. It isn't my fault that Sean doesn't possess the physical capability to put on added size and still look proportionate, symmetrical, hard, and ripped. End quote. Nasser, it sounds like you're not buying into this whole aesthetically pleasing concept.
No, I really I don't think so. And the problem with guys who are shorter is always that they say they have better symmetry and proportion than a bigger guy, but I think this is BS for sure. The taller you are, the longer your limbs are, but still, you can still make it, and it doesn't mean if you're short that you necessarily have a better physique, but I have still to give Sean Ray major credit. He's definitely one of the best bodybuilders who ever walked the planet, so I've still to give him credit, but at the same time, he deserves also a little bit criticism like everybody of us.
All right, well, he is your 1990.